These are Nebraska corn farmers. They work in acres, not hours, harvesting the energy and climate solutions the world needs. We are proud to stand with you.
The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal, Television for Agricultural Business Decisions, is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine, and partial funding provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board and the Nebraska Corn Board.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Bryce Duskett, and thank you very much for joining us today on Market Journal. We're back from our holiday break with some great content here in the new year for you. Coming up a bit later in the show, we'll take a look at a way to terminate cover crops. We'll also get the latest trends that are impacting the grain and livestock markets as we visit with the president of Global Commodity Analytics, Mike Zuzolo. Eric Hunt is standing by with your weekly weather forecast, and the Dean of Research for the Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources is going to give us some insights into the university's One Health program. All that is coming up here on this week's broadcast, but let's begin here. As we go through the winter months, we wanted to learn about some different ways that producers can lean into conservation practices as we gear up for the next planting season. We'll call it our Conservation Corner. More than ever before, there's a focus right now on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and offsetting environmental impact. As agricultural carbon markets continue to develop, many producers still have some questions. Let's work to answer some of those now as we visit with AGORO Carbon Alliance.
Let's get an update now. What's happening in the carbon credit space? Joining us from AGORO Carbon Alliance is Ryan Winter. He is the Grower Success Manager. Good to see you, Ryan. Size up. Where's the industry at? You guys have been around for more than 3 years now.
Yeah, so we're going into 3.5 years being in the market. We're keep growing. Our customer base keeps growing, which is a good thing, and our customers in general are staying with us because of the service that we're providing on the field. Going forward into next year, I imagine that we'll continue to keep growing as this carbon market keeps evolving and people are learning and being educated about it through various different streams of media and our team out in the field doing presentations and talks with folks. Education is becoming more robust, and people are starting to think, hey, this carbon thing's around to stay.
Let's get down to the basics of how this works. Farmer has practices. You all come in and say, hey, you implement these practices, you'll get a check at the end of the year. Take it from there.
Yeah, so we work with farmers to certain practices that are known by scientific parties that the carbon registries have said, yep, go ahead and you can claim credits towards these practices. We have certain practices that we offer: reduced till, no-till in certain cases, and cover crops, specifically on the row crop side of things. If a farmer hasn't been doing those practices in the past and wants to implement any of those by reducing their tillage or going away from tillage completely, or implementing a fall cover crop, a winter wheat or rye, if you will, by implementing those things, we can then start to collect all of the data that's required by the registry and the model, and we do soil samples and start the verification process with that data. We model where the carbon should be at, and we verify in the soil that it's there and where it's at in the soil, and then we run that through a third-party registry that says, yep, you've got so many carbon credits available off of this farm, and then we can go ahead and market those to businesses that are looking to offset their carbon emissions.
How long of a contract is a typical one with the AGORO Carbon Alliance?
Our contracts are 10 years long, and there's a variety of reasons for that. The biggest one being is permanence. The carbon market in general wants to see that the practices are being implemented, and then they're staying with those practices for the remainder time, if you will. So that's the biggest thing is permanence, and that's why the contracts in this market are generally so long. But also we want to be with the farmer for the long haul. We want to be there to help them in the hard times of these practice changes, because farming in general just is hard, and we want to provide that agronomic support when they need it throughout the 10 years and beyond, hopefully.
We've been talking about the row crop side of it. An interesting development from my seat here on the media side is groups have gone into the livestock space, so offering carbon credits there. Has AGORO Carbon Alliance done the same?
Yes, absolutely. We 3 years ago, we entered the row crop, or the will also help better forage availability, which is a side benefit, but also it keeps that cycle in the ground going, which improves your organic matter and your carbon at the same time.
What's the biggest misconception when it comes to carbon credits?
That people don't qualify for it. They dequalify themselves before asking questions. There's a lot of concerns around the practice changes, and folks that have been doing practice changes for a lot of years. There's always a concern around that, and before even talking to us at AGORO Carbon, they disqualify themselves because of that reason. And that's the number one thing that I want to emphasize is, don't just disqualify yourself. Always come and talk to us. There's a lot of different agronomic ways that you can do this, and we're the experts. We can help define what that is and how it fits your operation.
Can you share an example or two of some of the companies who are buying carbon credits from AGORO?
Yeah, so I can't really speak to that. I'm not on that side of things, but what I can tell you, it's the large businesses that have made the pledges for 2030 and 2040 to be net zero. It's those type of businesses that are making those pledges that we're going to be in business with coming forward into the future.
If you'd like to learn more about carbon credits and the ways AGORO can help you navigate this market, you're encouraged to visit them online. Their website is agorocarbonalliance.com. Moving along now, and in today's increasingly connected world, we're becoming more aware of the links among human, animal, plant, and ecosystem health. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources One Health initiative seeks to bring together people with diverse backgrounds, skills, and perspectives to improve the health of humans, plants, animals, and our shared environments.
So Liz, thanks for joining me.
Sure.
So why don't you just give me an overview of the One Health program here at UNL and some of your partners and how that's going?
Okay, sounds great. Well, thanks, Derek, for the invitation. So One Health is based on the idea that the health of people, animals, plants, and our shared environments is interconnected. And we could think about diverse types of animals, domestic animals like our pets and livestock, as well as wildlife. And there are many things that link health across these groups. Anything from a virus that goes from animals to people, so a zoonotic disease, or issues of contamination in shared water sources, things like wildfire smoke that might impact air quality for all. And many times when we're thinking about these challenges, we focus on things like shared diseases because they can have such a huge impact on agricultural production and food security from local to global levels. So if we think about diseases that can move from animals to people, whether it's from wildlife or domestic animals, it's influenced by lots of different scales. So everything from the level of the individual person and how our immune system responds to a disease, to the local level of where we contact other animals and people and hosts like ticks and mosquitoes that can carry pathogens, the regional level where we see diseases move from urban areas and agricultural systems and natural areas. So when we think of these big health challenges, One Health is an approach that just brings together teams of people from different backgrounds and training and perspectives to be able to work holistically to tackle these big health challenges that can impact people, our pets, livestock, wildlife, plants, and the environments that we share.
And when you describe it, it really helps me think about it moves across all aspects of our land grant mission.
Yeah.
And we're having a lot of these things are really topical right now. We're dealing with a lot of things over the last 5 years, but then also currently associated with wildlife diseases moving into domestic species. And how does that impact our systems, and how does that impact the profitability for agriculture, especially in the state of Nebraska? So who are some of the key partners you work with, both in the ag and in the human and in the environmental space that you have in your network?
Yeah, so it varies. So we have a Nebraska One Health program, and the goal of the program is to build these teams, whether we're thinking about an infectious disease or some other shared health threat. And we try to bring together teams that are working on research approaches, on training approaches for our students at all levels, as well as outreach and engagement with communities who are often on the front lines of these big challenges. So to give an example, ticks and tick-borne disease are a really big concern in the state of Nebraska, and especially in rural communities where people are in close contact. We know that new tick species are moving into the state, and we know that new diseases like Lyme disease are becoming established in areas of Nebraska. So when we're thinking about a challenge like that, we have a big Nebraska tick network that takes a One Health approach, and we're very happy to have our program be working with other partners in that big network. And that includes people from across universities in Nebraska, both the NU system and Creighton University, but it also includes partners at the state level, so the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Agriculture, Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, and then in many One Health groups, we're also working with local public health departments or nonprofit organizations, and then directly with producers and communities themselves, because many of these challenges don't stay in the university. So even though we might bring together people from, backgrounds like human and veterinary medicine and animal science and agronomy and economics at the university, One Health really works to engage much more broadly with partners to think about how things are changing and how we can work together to address them.
So when it comes to other areas, say, for example, I've got some notes I'm thinking about. What is like surveillance and the role of surveillance of diseases play, especially kind of in that transition zone between wildlife and domestic species?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So we know from the local to global level, there's a lot of concern about shared diseases. So a big one that has been in the news a lot lately and is on a lot of people's minds is highly pathogenic avian influenza, the H5N1 virus. So that's a virus that is hosted in wild birds, typically, especially waterfowl, but can cross over to domestic animals like chickens and cattle, and can be present in agricultural production systems, and that can also not only affect the livestock and their production and their health, but it can lead to exposure to farm workers who are in direct contact. So we think about it at a lot of different levels. What's happening in the wild bird populations? What's happening in livestock systems? What's happening with human exposure, with contact with any of those groups? And then avian influenza, we can think about it, it causes really big problems in agricultural production, but it also has an impact globally on conservation. There are a lot of wild birds and animals like elephant seals that are having conservation challenges due to this. So when we think about all of those different spheres, we want to understand what's happening in the wild hosts. We want to understand how the spillover is carrying the virus from wildlife to domestic animals, and then how people might be at risk too, because we know that, influenza viruses can go from animals to people, but sometimes they can change and also spread from person to person.
Now you can see an extended interview on our YouTube channel if you'd like to learn more about this initiative. We've also included an informative link along with this video. You can find that over on the Market Journal homepage. Well, it's that time of the show where we like to turn our attention over to the grain and livestock markets. And joining the show this week was the president of Global Commodity Analytics. That is Mr. Mike Zuzolo. Mike joined us on Wednesday afternoon, and here's our conversation. Let's recap what you've been seeing in the corn, soybean, and wheat markets. Some momentum in particular for corn. What are you watching over the past 15 days or so, Mike?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We've gotten this movement in the corn of the upside because of the demand, because of some Argentine weather starting to come into play as far as drouthy issues in some of their key growing regions. But I think, Bryce, what we've seen now is probably hits corn. So you get that low, you get below $1, 20 wheat over corn. That tends to bring in, especially in Asia, some additional wheat feeding at the expense of corn. So I think we're at a point now where maybe the corn's going to have a little bit more difficulty going it alone. It's going to probably 34 million, 34.5 million level. That's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully we don't go above that. And if so, maybe we can put a low in the wheat for once and for all.
Yeah, what has been the story in a week?
I think the big story in the wheat is continue to be the currencies and the tariffs and the trade. We continue to see the Russian ruble weaken against the US dollar. That keeps the market talking about cheap Russian supplies. But I think this is where maybe that dog won't hunt as well as it has in the past here as we go forward.
All right, you had a note you wanted to talk about cattle. A lot of people want to talk about cattle right now because we're looking at record prices. That makes some cattle producers happy out there. What are your 2 cents of the cattle complex?
My 2 cents is it's a very clean market in that the weather and the cash market has been driving this trade. I'm a little bit more nervous as we get into 2025, though, Bryce, that we're going to see more of a mixed bag of price action. I think we're demand rationing right now at these price levels, but because we have tight supplies of alternative proteins, it's not hurting the retail sector yet in the beef trade domestically. I think we are hurting the import-export market with this strong dollar. So I'm just kind of signaling out there we could keep a very strong winter weather pattern in the plain states and keep the prices strong through the cash market. But don't be surprised by some pretty significant corrections. We did that in 2014. We did it in 2015. I don't see this year being much different.
Good to get Mike's perspective on what's impacting both the grain and livestock markets there. I want to let you know that coming up next week, Heather Ramsey with the ARC Group is slated to join our show. Hope you'll join us then. Where can you teach community members about local produce and ag products, all while getting a tasty snack? The Crunch Off program is an initiative that provides the space for local agriculturalists to teach others not in the industry about different products grown right in their backyards. You can learn about how the Crunch Off is working in Nebraska in the January issue of the Nebraska Farmer. It's time now to take a look at weather with Nebraska Extension and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist, that is Eric Hunt. Eric, it's that time of the year where it hurts your face to be outside too long. The bitter cold has arrived. How are things shaping up as we turn to the week ahead?
Thanks, Bryce. Definitely see a reasonable probability of some more frozen cheeks on the horizon. Starting with early this next week, we're going to see a cold front slide through the state on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. That's going to bring much colder temperatures, only somewhat colder temperatures for the entire state. Coldest days in the east will probably be on Monday, further west more likely on Sunday, but I think everybody's going to have at least probably at least a 24 to 36 hour, if not extended period of below freezing temperatures once again. We should start seeing some moderation across the western portion of the state though on Monday, and that'll be spreading further to the east by Wednesday. And I think as we move into Thursday, we will see temperatures probably getting into the 40s across most of the state, as right now the European model is showing a relatively good chance of above average temperatures across the entire north central region. So I think we have at least a day or two in here later this next week where we should get into the 40s for most of the state, potentially even getting closer to 50 here across portions of southwestern Nebraska. Precipitation will be a pretty quiet week this next week. Pretty much no precipitation for anybody across the state or across most of the region for that matter for most of this next week. As we head toward the weekend after this one, though, particularly as we get to the 19th, 20th, we will have what looks to be pretty strong high pressure here off the Gulf of Alaska. So again, for a lot of last fall, we had really strong low pressure here. Looking at strong ridging, that's going to drive troughing into the western United States. Now, there's still a bit of uncertainty as exactly how this is going to play out, but there will be at least a chance for a significant storm to develop here somewhere in the lee of the Rockies and move into the central United States as we head toward January 20th, 21st timeframe. That's not an official forecast, but I do think it's something to watch out for as models are indicating some possibility of something brewing here that may bring significant precipitation, or at least impactful precipitation to portions of our region as we move into that time period. So something to watch out for. CPC right now is showing a pretty good chance of above average precipitation in the form of snowfall here across portions of western Nebraska as we move into this period from the 15th to the 21st. And they are relatively bullish on pretty much the entire lower 48 being below average for temperatures as we move in this period. Again, I think we're not looking at the polar vortex type of colds we saw last year around this time, but I would bank on it being relatively cold the week after this next one. Probably looking at a lot of days of highs in the upper teens to mid 20s, maybe closer to 30 degrees across portions of western Nebraska. We've been cold though here in the last week, so Monday morning we did see wind chills below zero pretty much everywhere in the state, with some readings here in north central Nebraska getting closer to 30 below on Monday morning. Again, not record cold, but certainly pretty cold. And we did see quite a bit of snowfall here across portions of southeastern Nebraska, and portions of the Panhandle also got more than 4 inches of snow. A lot of us here in east central Nebraska really kind of got shafted on that last snowfall. We had a lot of drier air that was coming in from the east that really limited snowfall accumulations here across portions of east central Nebraska. Drought monitor, we did see a little bit of expansion of D3, extreme drought across portions of Cherry and Sheridan County, and we have also seen some degradation in the Panhandle since I've last shown you this map. Soil moisture remains about the same as it's been, still relatively dry across a lot of this region, but not as bad as it was earlier in the fall. Soil temperatures right now across state mostly are below freezing, and our temperature roundup for the 1st through the 7th. Back to you, Bryce.
All right, thank you very much there, Eric. While growing organic soybeans comes with its fair share of challenges, on today's show we wanted to introduce you to the roller crimper. The crimper can be used effectively to kill rye and triticale cover crops, all while providing ecologically friendlier mulch for soybeans. We were on hand at a recent demonstration to
still trying it on acres, just seeing if we can make that fit in operations.
I think the biggest advantage for this is that it's a different form of weed control that we can bring out. So on my own acres, organic acres, we really use this as a way to balance out our labor as well for weed management. And it's also, I think, a really big soil health benefit for us. After we harvest our soybeans, we still have that big rye mat covering the soil. And then when we come in the next spring to rotate to corn, that soil is just like absolute butter under there. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I think we do see a big rotational benefit for our corn the following year as well.
So one of the biggest benefits of using a roller crimper is that it allows us to let that cover crop get bigger. We've seen, if we can grow 8,000 pounds of biomass, we get a lot more weed control. We're letting that cover crop grow and produce more root systems, so that's going to help us with soil health, erosion, things like that. Just a lot of benefits of letting it get bigger. The challenge with that, though, has always been traditionally, then we're delaying planting, harder to get through possibly with planters, things like that. So the roller crimper, presses all that down on the ground for us, makes it easier to get through the field as long as we go the same direction. So it really has some advantages, especially in situations where weed control is a challenge. So the reason the university's looking at these, we know there's producers using these. We wanted to do that ourselves. So here at the CMDC plots, purchased 10-foot roller. We plan on 4-row plots, so it matches up perfectly with what we're doing. We just wanted experiment, try some different things. This first year we just got started with it. We'll probably gonna in the future we'll try maybe some different types of cover crops, different types of rye, different things. Just see what works, what doesn't, and hopefully get some discussion going. Like we had a great field day today, a lot of discussion, a lot of suggestions from the crowd of what does, what doesn't work. So,
if you'd like to learn more about this particular variety of cover crop termination, you can learn all about it by visiting cropwatch.unl.edu and then using the search bar to simply search roller crimper. Well, that is going to do it for this week's broadcast of Market Journal. If you did miss one of our stories, we want to encourage you to follow along with the Market Journal team on our social media accounts, and you can catch the whole show over on the Market Journal YouTube channel. Hope to see you right here next time, but until then, I'm Bryce Duskett, wishing you a safe and productive week.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.